Okay, guys, happy Wednesday. Sorry, there was some technical difficulties. Um, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right into things. If you guys are at work or something, you can keep your cameras off. But if you want to turn your cameras on and listen in, and so we can see, I can see your beautiful faces. That'd be awesome. Okay, and today we're gonna go over meal planning. Who here has ever meal planned or prepped food, had things set aside? Let me let some people in. I see some people raise their hand, thumbs up. Okay, okay. So we're a little familiar with it, a little familiar with some meal just started. Okay, well, welcome. Nice to see you. Now that we got more people kind of pouring in and hopping off, I'm going to take this time to share my screen and introduce myself so you guys can know exactly who I am. And I'm not just some random lady that popped up on your computer screens. Okay, let me let some more people in. Oh, my screen doesn't want to let me let people in and it's bigger at the same time. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm Coach Megan. I have been an online coach since 2013, basically right after I had my son. I started venturing into coaching, and I've done a numerous background of different coaching from hormone regulation. Let some people in real quick. Hormone regulation, weightlifting, CrossFit. I've done a big background in those things. I used to be a runner in high school. I ran track, I've run marathons. Not really my thing anymore. Honestly, it takes a lot of time and it's very consuming. So I'm just like, put a pin in that. Um, I'm married. My husband's name is Kendall. You might recognize him. He was on The Voice, which is something he always likes to bring up. Allison's like, I didn't know that. But he's pretty awesome. You can look him up. It's Kendall Eugene. A big thing is I like realistic. A big part of my coaching is to make sure it's realistic for you and make sure it fits your lifestyle. I know some things just aren't realistic. So I was really happy when I got this topic because I was like, this is right up my alley because I know that we want things to be realistic in our day to day. You know, we can't expect things not to be realistic for you guys just to kind of jump in and navigate. If I don't do it, I'm personally not going to push that for you to do the same things. So that's a little bit about me. So we're going to talk about meal planning and how to make it easy. I got a lot of tips and tricks kind of up my sleeve about how you can just navigate setting yourself up for success, setting your nutrition up for success for the week with only about 20 minutes. Who has an extra 20 minutes on the weekend that they could spend setting themselves up for success for the week so that you have everything, it's set in stone, it's easy, it's there, and you can just pop it, eat it, move on with your life. That's the big thing that I always like to look at is like, is this going to be realistic? I have 3 kids of my own and then 3 bonus kids. So I have 6 kids total. So like easy is something that I want to manage. There's a lot going on at all times, work, busyness, Sunday school, all those things. So I love easy. That is like,
Well, I mean,
okay. um, so we're not going to look at rigid. We're not going to look at this is just diet, and we're not definitely not going to look at perfection. We want things to come to you guys as we don't want it to be hugely like something that you have to think about and something that you have to like, sit down and plan in the calendar and things like that. Granted, there's always planning there. So I want to make sure that we do take that step forward, but there's always go-tos. And once you kind of discover those go-tos, then you gain more consistency with that. It's just kind of the getting started and getting used to it. Because with any habit that you do start building, it does take a little bit of extra time towards that. And having those meal plans just better supports your journey for all over hormone sport. So you can plan an entire week around 20-ish minutes without cooking every day. I don't know about you, but I don't want to cook my food every day, but I also don't want to meal prep one time throughout the week and then eat the same thing every single day. By day 2 Like, I'm not even gonna lie, it's like two that I'm like, ick, I can't eat this chicken anymore. I can't eat this rice. Like, I need something else. I need to make sure this is a little bit different because I just get the ick really easily. I need some variety to that. And I know like a lot of you guys are like that too. Like, you need something to be a little bit different to really establish some variety in your day to day. Meal planning is going to be really, really important because if we don't plan, then we basically are setting ourselves up for failure. If we plan our meals, then we have something like, hey, I'm just going to grab this out of the fridge, pop it in the microwave, boom. A lot of things that I like to do is I won't plan like an entire meal per se of meal planning. My big thing that I like to do is I will plan my meats that I want that week. Whether that's, for a couple days I'll have chicken, a couple days later I'll have, I don't know, beef or, turkey or whatever I'm in the mood for, some kind of kielbasa or sausage or something. I'll have that a couple days later. And I will make sure I set myself up for success um, for planning. That's the big thing. And to have these things on hand. So, say Sunday, I'll throw some chicken in the instant pot, crock pot, whatever you got on hand, have that cook for a couple hours, literally don't touch it, shred it, let it cool down, pop it in the fridge. That's what I have for 2 days for my meats. And then I can take that same chicken and I will literally just season it. I like to say basic season it, garlic, salt, pepper, and then throughout the week, I can make like a chicken spaghetti with that for myself or even the kids, which makes my life so much easier. I can throw it on top of some rice. I can mix some mashed vegetables. So you can see I'm not eating the same thing every day, but I use that one prep of meat to last me a few days, last kiddos, last all of that multiple times throughout the week. That really helps me have that meat. Naturally, I don't really like meat, and my go to would not be first priority to have that if I didn't know that my body needed it. I leaned more towards rice and carbs and honestly vegetables. I don't even really like fruit naturally, but those are things that I do incorporate, and I have to like almost remind myself to intake on a daily basis because like, hey, I need this. So meal planning is going to be really, really important because if we don't have that, just like I talked about, like having that meat on hand, if I didn't have that in the fridge, then I wasn't going to set myself up for success. Most likely, I was not going to get to it in the evening. I would cook some sort of meat, throw something together, just cook some like, macaroni and cheese for the kids, eat that, and then move on. That would be what would happen. So we can see that if when meals are inconsistent, blood sugar can swing, energy crashes, your cravings, your inflammation. Because if I just fueled myself with the kids' mac and cheese, I would not get what my body needed, and it would not give me what I needed to have everything level. Meal planning gives you predictability because it gives you what you ultimately need later on down the line. Winging it, so like I just talked about, I would skip meals. I would literally go all day if I didn't have something for myself for lunch. If I didn't have it in the fridge, if I didn't have it in the freezer that I could just pop in the microwave, because I'm busy. Like, we're doing things all throughout the day. I am a typical like grazer snacker type person. Like, that is my go-to. Like, I would rather eat little things all throughout the day. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we don't set ourselves up for success in knowing what we're going to graze throughout the day, having apples or little cuties or, cheese or whatever on hand, even lunch meat or something, then most likely we would grab, maybe kids have some Cheetos in the pantry, and that's something that we can just grab. I always like to say, like, there's different food labels of like red light, green light, and yellow light foods. Red light is like, absolutely, if it's in the house, you're going to eat it. Green light is like, you can always eat it. You like it. It's not really an issue, but you won't cling to it. And then yellow light is like, let's say it's the banana that's sitting on the counter that just goes bad. You like it, but you don't necessarily, you're not going to cling towards it. And it's not going to be your first go-to. It's probably going to go bad, but you're like, I don't know why that keeps going bad because I eat this, like I like it, like what happened to it? These kinds of things can help us create more of like a system for ourselves of like, okay, let me go ahead and plug this in on what I'm eating today. Let me plug in like, hey, I'm going to have 4 snacks today as like my, throughout my day of my meal. I'm making sure it's meeting my protein. I'm having tons of fruits and vegetables. It doesn't boil down to like lack of willpower. It's just structure and creating that for yourself. So the overall goal is we want predictability in what we're eating. We don't want to like have these go-tos of like, grabbing the kids Cheetos or Maybe having to go to the break room and just grab whatever they have laying in there because we need something and we didn't plan ahead for that. This is where, door dashing to the office or just having to pick up something on the way home because you haven't eaten all day and you're just starving and you need something. This is where that can kind of create dysregulation in your body where, your hormones are not going to thrive. They're going to crash. Like your body's going to crash because if we don't have those things, your hormones will not regulate. And hormones, your entire body's system actually thrives off consistency and rhythm. So if we give it things that it needs throughout the day and we planned ahead without restrictions, then that creates like a huge balance within our body and leveling things out. So this is how I like to kind of structure that. I talked a little bit about this earlier of you want to have your anchors and I always start with some kind of protein because if I don't start with my protein source, like then I have a hard time mentally in my brain making sure things like match or pulling something together. So I always start with that because I can find rice in my cabinet. I can find quinoa. I can find pastas. I can find those kinds of things. But proteins are the things that seem to fall away the fastest, or you forget about, you popped them in the freezer, you got to get them out. Like they're the things that I got to prepare a little bit more for. Then we have our general template of what that looks like. And this is not something that in my mind I built overnight. When I say meal template, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to have some kind of chicken spaghetti this week. That's what I'm going to meal prep, but I'm just going to prep the chicken because I'm going to use the chicken as well, because let's just have spaghetti in one night. Nobody wants spaghetti for the entire week. We don't want that. I got my, quinoa base protein noodles that are going to keep me fuller. They're full of fiber. They're fantastic. I got my veggies. Boom. That's one meal. And then I use that same amount of chicken that I cooked in one big swoop in the crock pot, Instant Pot. And then I looked at that and, okay, what else do I want? All right, let's have some rice and we could throw some lentils in there for fiber, help me keep me fuller longer. And then maybe I want some broccoli for that night. And your broccoli doesn't always have to be like fresh that you have to steam all this time. You can pop a bag in the microwave. You can make these rice and things like that earlier in the day. And then you can look at that as like, those two meals could last you all week. And that's one time that you had to prep some kind of protein base. Noodles take 10 minutes? Rice only takes a couple minutes that you throw in there. You can just throw some lentils or throw some quinoa in that rice. And then you have those meals that you created, a very simple structure. You can add seasoning to it. Like maybe you want a fried rice type thing within that, measuring all the things that go into it. And then it helps you kind of gain that plan, the schedule for yourself. You can anchor these meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Personally, I don't really want chicken for breakfast. I don't know about y'all. Maybe some eggs, some spinach. So that will always be a little bit different because my taste buds for breakfast kind of waver. But you could use those things for more than one meal throughout the day. Maybe you're making like a chicken omelet. Maybe you are, instead of just chicken that you're making, you went ahead and prepped some turkey sausage or something for yourself. And you can boom, 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 plug these in all throughout the week to have a protein forward meal that keeps you full. And then the fruits or vegetables are the easy part, honestly. They take minutes to kind of saute. Fruit, you just grab. It's literally nature's convenience food. You can just grab and go with those and plug those in throughout your day. This leads to throughout the week, like fewer decisions. When you're at work, you're busy. Women in general, we're juggling a lot on the day to day. We are. And we got a lot of things going up and down all around. And we want to make sure that we want to make the least amount of like heavy decisions as possible, because that's what always labels taking care of yourself, changing your health. Everything is like, not hard, but a challenge, or why everybody hasn't done it yet. Because there's decision there, which can lead to decision fatigue if we're constantly making a million decisions all throughout the day. So it just a little bit of planning on one day, midweek, that can help you kind of gauge that for success ultimately later on down the line for your week for ultimate success. Simple meal templates. I've already kind of talked about this. Is you want that protein and fiber would be the next big thing that you want to hit. Is, say you could take some Greek yogurt, throw some fruit in there. You just hit two of the foundations that you need. You don't even need a recipe for that. When you start digging into recipes and looking online or venturing into meal plans, things like that, that's when it can get overwhelming for decisions that you're ultimately making. You want to think and label it as like simple as possible of like, okay, protein, fiber. Where are these checkpoints? Does this meal have that? And that's where you want to leave it. Because if you're adding, okay, I need, maybe 20 different ingredients to make this one thing for meal prep for this week, to me, that's instantly overwhelming. Like, I don't even want to deal with it. I don't even want to think about it because it puts your mindset in a position of like, okay, I don't have, cumin, I don't have white pepper, I don't have this on hand. I have to go get this. I have to do that. I have to add this to my cart. Maybe we're just doing a grocery pickup for, eat easy. And then I got to add that and do that. These things kind of create that one, and it makes recipes really, really expensive over long periods of time. So you want to simplify that. And then you can add little things throughout the week that can add to that later on. Just a picture of some beautiful food. Um, we want to reduce all around stress completely when it comes to meal planning because we're busy, not just during the day, but at night as well. Maybe you're going to go to your grandkids' house here. Maybe you're going to your kid's house. I mean, not your kid's house, watching your grandkids here. Maybe you have a meeting, a late night meeting. Maybe you're going to grandkids practice or kiddos practice, like work runs late. These things happen. You're traveling. These are things that can kind of set you up for success if we don't label it as I need this, this, and this, and this to be successful with whatever meal that I'm making here. These things can simplify things for you. Low effort versus cook days. I, years ago, I used to be the kind of person every Sunday I would have like a million Tupperwares on my counter, prepping myself for the week. One, I got the ick like day 3 of that food because you can only eat chicken, rice, and broccoli for so long before you just want to throw up. And then also, it just took a lot, it literally took all day, okay. Not just cooking, but also cleanup of all those dishes and stuff. It's just absolutely not. So we want them to be more intentional for you and things that are going to bleed and breathe. This is doable. You can plug in, okay, I got 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Let me plug this in. Your prep time is almost nothing. And then you just have to wait for the slow cooker or Instant Pot to be done, which I highly suggest an Instant Pot. It takes quarter of the time of a slow cooker for anything really. But with this, you want it all to match like what you're doing on a daily basis. We want it to be intentional, but it doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be something that's extreme at all. So keep it simple. Takeaways. To keep it simple, protein at every meal should be doable, and it doesn't have to be extreme. It doesn't. You can, cut up some kielbasa, throw it in the air fryer. Have your chicken, throw it in the Instant Pot. Ground some turkey real quick. Ground some beef real quick. These kinds of things can help take you to the next level. I don't personally like cooking vegetables a couple days before because they just get soggier in the fridge, but it's honestly a couple minutes. Frozen vegetables are great. So I don't want anybody to ever think that they're not. They get frozen at their peak nutritional value. So when we're looking at that, grab them. It's okay. And then healthy fats, like if we're having things, beef, things that have a little bit higher in fat, they're already in there. And then you can throw some seasonings in there that, maybe that don't have all this extra fat and oils and calories in there. And then boom, you have a really good nutritional meal. It doesn't have to be extreme. We don't need to obsess over having perfect macros, perfectly clean foods, cutting foods out aggressively. You can add more to what you're doing through fruits and vegetables, and you will feel like you're eating way, 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 way more if you just factor those things in throughout the day. Consistency in what you're doing beats the intensity of it. I know of years of intense, like doing it burns you out. It's not worth it in a long run because it doesn't give you longevity. And we want this to be real for you guys. You don't have to have a perfect schedule. You don't have to have perfect motivation either. Just 30 minutes to cook, and having backup options. Just some time set aside on the weekends. I run off my calendar. I'll literally put it in my calendar. like, this is meal prep time. This is grocery pickup time. This is what that looks like. Because if I don't run off my calendar, I'm not functioning. But everybody's a little bit differently. If you just kind of plug that into your mind, like, okay, Saturday afternoon, we're going to do, or we're going to go to the store. Next day, 30 minutes, we're going to, you know, prep that food for everybody to have success throughout the week. I always like to say, have like a backup plan, whether that's, you know, some, I don't know, kielbasa or something that's thrown in the freezer that you can pull out, because food can get an ick. One, it can also say it goes bad faster than maybe we're mentally planning. Because in the beginning, it takes a little bit of a learning curve to know these things of like, ooh, pull that out. That kind of smelled weird. And then boom, where are we going to go for dinner? Because that's where we're stuck if we don't have a plan B just in case. Always have kind of a backup plan in your mind. Some smart convenience foods. I know that we're almost out of time, but I know that I was late hopping on too. Some smart convenience food is just rotisserie chicken, super easy, super easy that you can just grab from the convenience store. I personally only like it when it's cooked and then I can take it home. I will not eat it later on down the line, but my husband does. Frozen vegetables are great. You can have a protein shake. Just don't make that your only protein source for the day. It can be a supplement for, you know, breakfast, have some rolled oats or oatmeal with that. That's something easy and convenient. You pre-cut produce is really good, a little bit more expensive, but it's convenience that you're paying for at the end of the day. You know, ready rice, quinoa in the packages, those are easy and they're going to help kind of get you to XYZ if you're super limited on time or you didn't want to prep rice or whatever. You can eat out with stress. Always lead with protein. Build your plate. So if you're one of my clients, then you probably already know and you've probably already seen the hand portion charts. About a palm is about 4 ounces for females. And that's all you guys really need a meal. Males, you're about 6 because your hands are bigger. There's no males on here, but you can tell your husbands you need about 6. So always lead with protein. You can look at the menu. Okay, protein, about a palm, 4 ounces ish. And then add fiber. Make sure you're adding fiber to your plate. Make sure it's not covered in oils. That's going to be the big thing of eating out. You can ask these things. Don't be shy. And then if say, you know, because when we eat out, normally gives calories. Ask them, hey, I don't need X, Y, and Z on here. I don't need added butter. Just cook it like this. And then that helps you kind of navigate that one meal. But even if, say, it was a little bit higher, there was a little bit more oils on it, you're guessing. I tell my clients, write me a little note in Cronometer, move on. Don't stress about it. You can adjust the rest of the day, kind of tweak, maybe not having as much fat, maybe take out that avocado at dinner, you know, just kind of tweak it. It doesn't ruin the day. It's just kind of navigating like, hey, let's do like a little quick adjustment that can navigate, you know, what we intook for the day so that we're balanced. And then, so this is my last one. So the big takeaway is anchoring meals, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. When you start digging into all the online recipes and stuff, they're great every now and then, but we can simplify those even more. Keep it simple on your plate. You want it simple and you want it to be something that you can repeat, that you love, that you enjoy. Like, I don't love cooking, you know, I'll be the first to tell anybody that like cooking is not for me. But if you keep it simple, then it keeps it doable and it keeps it maintainable. Like going on, I don't know, I've been eating and prepping my food and stuff for 15 years. It was about 2 years before I became a coach. So about 15 years, I've been doing this consistently and just making sure that I'm navigating everything. You do not have to be perfect. When I was perfect, I was burnt out and it was overwhelming and it was too much. So you just want everything to come to you within balance. You don't have to overhaul everything. Just try it 1 week. And I guarantee you, you're gonna be like, oh, I can't believe I was ever doing it any other way, because it really brings balance and you're like, I can do this. It keeps it simple. I have not read the chat. Does anybody have questions for me? So CF, I see your question. What are your recommendations when trying to incorporate an anti-inflammatory diet? That's going to be fruits and vegetables, protein sources. So just like we kind of talked about, is having that foundation of your protein and then making sure you're factoring in those bulks of fruit and vegetable throughout the day. I was kind of talking about this in the meeting earlier, but there is the 800-gram rule, which is 800 grams of fruits and vegetables and or 6 cups a day. All my clients work on that. That's something that we navigate towards. But there's the kind of a kicker with that is I will never tell you like, hey, tomorrow you have to eat 6 cups of fruits and vegetables. Your gut would not like you. That's probably way, way, way more than what you're intaking already. So it's almost a slow build that you want to work towards for that to build up to that. But anything anti-inflammatory is going to be your fruits and veg and your micronutrients that you're getting through those. It kind of dials down all of the inflammatory responses in your body and water. Backup plans have helped me when I'm sick. Yes, backup plans always help when you're sick. Yes, 800 grams of fruit or veg, which equals 6 cups. What I like to do for my clients personally is, when I'm looking at Cronometer, I'll give like a rough estimate. I'm like, okay, you're averagely throughout the week, maybe intaking 2 cups throughout every day, 1 cup sometimes. And then I'll take that and I'll build slowly. So every week we'll add a cup until we get to 6 cups. And then it's like almost easy peasy for anybody to kind of adhere to, because you start factoring those in as breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's 3 cups right there. And then maybe you have an apple. That's basically a cup if you chop it up. Then you have maybe strawberries later in the day, or you have some extra yeah, I don't know, edamame or something, later in the evening. That's easily 6 cups a day. It's actually way more doable than sometimes it sounds. Sometimes it can sound like it's a lot, but it does help build the anti-inflammatory and just gut response in general to being a little bit more responsive. Any other questions before we hop off?
Just a comment, Megan. I loved how you mentioned the idea of like discipline versus setting yourself up for success, because it's very common to feel like, you failed if you haven't necessarily stuck to a plan. But if you don't kind of like put your ducks in a row, then we can't really expect to succeed. So I kind of liked that idea of we've got to prepare ourselves and not like lean into discipline.
Yeah. Plant-based proteins. I do worry about the saturated fats in meat. I really prefer like plant if I'm going plant-based or I'm recommending plant-based, I don't like any of the processed like plant-based meats because it just has more junk in it than we honestly need. I always lean more towards when I'm recommending different kinds of lentils or edamame or those kinds of things that have a lot more protein in them. It is harder to make sure you're getting in all your proteins when you're not eating meats. So I always make sure I tell anybody who wants that and goes that direction, but definitely keeping it in like the category of like lentils, your different kinds of beans that you can have. Those are the best and the highest that you can get that are full of fiber. It depends on if you eat fish and stuff too. I think that there's like that's a very broad question for me to try to answer right now. Um, what about non-meat options? I'm struggling to eat enough protein. Oh, that seems to be a theme. This might be another call we might need to do. Plant-based protein sources. Any more questions before we hop off? I will upload this to Everfit. I know that we're gonna upload all the calls throughout this week. Tomorrow we have sleep solutions, and then Friday, it's gonna be move with your hormones, move your body with your hormones, something like that. So make sure you're on for those as well. Yeah, if you guys need anything or have any questions, you can always shoot us a message, and we're always in your back pocket. Okay, bye guys.